Welcome to another edition of Vintage Therapy. I'm Danny from the Broadway Antique Market in Chicago, and I'm with my co-host Melissa Sands from Vintage Garage in Evanston. As you know, if you've been following the series, what we do is we answer dealer questions. As we have hundreds of them, and we'll slowly dig our way through them. And there's some really fun ones. And generally what we're doing is when a number of people ask the same question, that's what kind of brings it up in the roster of the ones that we're going to respond to first. So that's how the show's been going, and we're going to jump right into it today. And it's a fun question, really more of a statement. It's why do other dealers bug me? Again, this is from dealers saying that dealers are annoyed with other dealers. So we're going to kind of jump into this. I absolutely have some opinions on this, but we're going to take it away, Melissa. What's your thoughts on that? Other dealers bug you?
Other dealers do not bug me. I have never been personally threatened by another dealer who's setting up in a booth, near me or anything else. I will say I can be threatened in a buying situation. So like if I was in an estate sale or something and some dealer pushes me down in order to get what I wanted or something, yeah, that would bug me. But from the perspective of, am I bothered by other dealers? Okay, let me just say it like this. We have many dealers selling vintage clothing in this industry, okay? At the Vintage Garage, I could seriously have 10 different vintage clothing vendors in a row, and you're not going to see duplicates. All right? So, what's the problem? Why are you annoyed? And this is something I've heard. I have heard complaints about pricing. I've heard, just all kinds of stuff. So, what you need to know is if you're not having a good show, it's not your neighbor's fault.
Right.
It's just not. I hear this like too many vintage clothing dealers. Well, if that was the case, the vintage clothing and jewelry show would be a big bust. Okay? There's 50 dealers in there. Everybody's selling clothing, jewelry, and accessories. And for the most part, everyone's doing well. But what I notice is if someone doesn't do well, they never look inward. It is always someone else's fault. And so the competition side of it is kind of ridiculous. A long time ago in Detroit, I was going to estate sales. Now, I am a competitive person by nature, and I did not want to stand in line with everybody else and compete with them for merchandise. So I decided that I was the only one that could solve that. And so I started to run ads so that I could go by myself and be the only one there.
Right.
Problem solved. Okay. So if you feel like your competition is a problem, then you need to ask yourself why. What's the problem? What are they doing wrong that's hurting you? Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. So let me just run through a few things that could be wrong with you and not your neighbor. Maybe you paid too much for your merch. Maybe you bought things that were not good sizes. And I know I'm kind of zeroing in on the clothing here, but I think that's a big one just because there's so many people selling clothing. So I'm going to go ahead and just use it. The condition may be a problem. Vintage clothing is all about condition. You could be a terrible salesman. Maybe you're not really doing the same kind of salesmanship as your neighbor. Or your setup sucks. Or maybe you don't know what you're selling. I don't know. But here's what I do know. It's not your neighbor. It's not anyone else that's in the mall set up with you. It is not your neighbors at a show. You know, if somebody is selling stuff too cheap, then get your butt over there and buy it.
Right.
Get over there and become a customer, you know? Um, but this is just something I hear all the time. Um, and it's all about that first instinct, I think, to blame everybody else.
Mhm.
Okay. There's also something I find that you probably have found as well: jealousy.
Mm.
Jealousy over stuff. And that one, I mean, I felt it. Yeah, of course. If you got a big load of vintage clothes and they were all minty mint with the tag still on them, of course I'd be a little jelly about that. But again, I have seen that kind of thing go so far that another dealer will try to sabotage another dealer just because they've hit something really good like that.
Yes, absolutely.
And I believe that your success in this business is also dependent on your relationship with others.
Yeah.
Play nice.
Right. It's a business of relationships. It's been kind of a
Yes.
theme that we've been discovering here. Yeah.
What do you see? Do you see that kind of thing happening at the mall?
Oh, well, I see that just generally across the board. I mean, when this topic first came up, and here I'm agreeing with almost everything you say, which I don't always, which is why I think this show is interesting. Um, uh, but I'm not a competitive person. I'm not. I'm uncomfortable with it. It's not who I am. And to your point, I would rather buy directly from an estate, an individual.
But
I you know,
why?
I don't want, I don't want the crowd, because I'm not competitive. I'm just not. I've never been like big on sports. It's just not who I am. And as we've talked about in other episodes, it's fairly easy to get merchandise. So I don't have to kill myself to do that. Why put myself in a comfortable situation when I don't have to?
Right.
And I can be more
That's
efficient with my
exactly
time,
it.
which I think might be the big thing. However, when I first saw the topic, I went and I said, I was kind of flummoxed by it, but then I started thinking and going, yeah, I hear this all the time. And it seems to me like there's a number of different places where this happens with dealers. And to your point, I was also thinking, I've heard stories about dealers in thrift stores and having things in their cart, and another dealer coming along when one turns their head away and suddenly it's out of their cart. So
Good Lord.
people pull some shit, right? Um, that absolutely happens. Or you're at a market and that kind of, one is looking at something and there's the big reach over. So it's very territorial. It's like dogs and cats here. I took a piss. This is my space.
Yeah.
And you can go either way with that. I mean, think about the times. Oh gosh, I hear this all the time. Like, I was looking through a box of records, and this guy comes over, reaches over, and says, "This is my box of records." Well, you know what? I agree with that. But when it's a table full of records, and somebody says, "I am looking at this table full of records," or they're in an estate, yeah, or they're in an estate, and somebody had heard this story the other week, and I thought, wow, yeah, I get it. Somebody had went up into the attic at an estate sale. They were permitted to go up there, and they're looking around, and the second person who comes in says, "Okay, I'm looking at everything here." And the dealer was like, "Screw you! I'm looking at that. I'm looking at these clothes. I'm buying these clothes. Get away from me." So very territorial when kind of the claws come out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a
And
it's a thing. It's a thing. And you want to say these are like kids in the playground to me. This is be nice, right? But I get it because people get very hungry for merchandise, and it kind of pushes the envelope of just what are you willing to do. But I will say, and I say every town is a small town. So if you're going to be an asshole, use the expression, any of these places, particularly an estate sale though, where it's a very condensed area of dealers, right? They're going to talk, everybody's going to
Yep.
talk and go, "What a pinhead!" You know what blah blah did? It's out. It's out there. And there's some innocent mistakes. We've all done that. I didn't realize this was someone's pile. Oops. Do the right thing. But if you're going to be a real dick, it's going to get out there, and that isn't good. That isn't good for your business. In many many ways, people not only will people not want to buy from you, they won't want to sell to you. So in the end, I think that catches up if you're. I'm gonna run out of 4-letter words, but so I think so that doesn't happen so much in I think the malls because they're not the individuals selling. There's a staff doing that, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But I think when it's that one-on-one kind of shopping, people have a bubble around them, and it's their shopping space. So, and it rightfully so. But when they collide, it can get pretty nasty. So it's a thing. I didn't really think about it till this came up, and I went, I can see why people feel it's a thing. It is.
Sure. You know, I've always thought that, and I'll probably say this 1,000 times during these episodes, but the money is made in the buy. Okay.
Right.
Buy it right, you're going to be fine. So if you're struggling to get merchandise because you feel like other vendors are more aggressive than you or whatever else, then come up with something else, just like I did. I didn't want to compete with the people around me. I did not want to see bad behavior. I did not want to engage in any bad behavior. So I stepped out and decided I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to come up with something else so that I am not standing in line with a bunch of people. And this works for me because, I was at a sale and I watched someone knock down an 87-year-old woman for some lamp.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, really? Is this your only, are you a lion and this is your only shot at a meal?
Yeah, there's some really bad behavior out there.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to kind of take back to was, and I've heard this from any number of people, dealers. So, okay, I'm sure most people realize this. When there's a state sale, they're going to let in the first 10 people, whatever. So who's behind you, and and it's okay. Yeah, yeah, it's your competition. Let's say small C, it's your competition. But I have absolutely heard when people say, "Well, I know so and so's behind me, so I'm going to go in." And and he collects, doesn't really matter, fill in the blank, Pyrex, vinyl, Bakelite, fill in the blank, and I'm going to buy every freaking piece so that when he gets in, there's nothing there. And the problem, yeah, absolutely,
what the hell?
right,
What is that about?
Right? No, I've heard this from multiple, and they're going like, really? It's like, well, I hate him, I hate her so much, right? But you know what you end up doing? You end up overpaying. Just to your point there, you end up because if you're really going to do that, if you're really going to buy it, you're spending way too much on your inventory because you want just to make a point.
Which makes no
sense at all.
whatsoever.
So that vengeance there is really a dollar sign, like wow, but and I'm sure there are dealers out there who know they haven't gotten, so how they go, hey, I know it was advertised in there, and then I get in there and this guy's bought it all. Well, there's a coincidence and then there's a motive.
I just don't get what the motive is.
Yeah, well, people hold these grudges for years too. I mean, they just do, and it's so unproductive. It's unprofessional, really. And it's another thing. I think in the end, it just bites you in the ass. You wouldn't want it done to you, and it's just it's greedy. It's greedy, and
it is greedy, and it's also you're undercutting your own business.
Yeah.
By letting this stuff get in, letting this stuff seep in so deep that you are so angry that you're not maintaining your own business.
No.
So a lot of something I've seen in the surveys more than once and is almost its own separate subject, but not really. And that is Craigslist. Now, I've never used Craigslist to buy unless I'm the one placing an ad saying, "Hey, I'll buy a bunch of stuff, call me." Other people I know are going after things in the hopes that maybe they don't know what they've got. Okay. So somebody could put up some really hot mid-century modern chair. They're not really sure what it is. They ask $100 for it. You answer the ad. You say you'll pay $100. And then somebody else comes behind you and tells them, "Hey, you've got something really valuable here. I'm willing to pay you $500 for it." Well, what happened there? You answered the ad. This person's not a dealer. This person doesn't care what, that you're first and that you've said $100. They care that somebody else has clued them in on what it is and that they're offering $500.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're done. You're done. And your competition has actually just done something smart, and it's pissing you off because you feel like there's some rules, and there are no rules.
No, it's
See?
the wild, wild west of retail. Yeah.
And if you're going to spend time chasing things on Craigslist in situations like that, again, you're screwing yourself. If that doesn't work for you and it drives you out of your mind, stop doing it.
Yeah.
There are other ways to get merchandise. And like you said, if going to the thrift and seeing your competitors bothers you, don't go.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
go. Like, I'm not going to tell you that here's what I'm going to tell you. Behave, because people talk. Okay?
Exactly.
Since we've moved here, we've gone to plenty of estate sales. Now, we would get first in line if we could. If there was a sale coming up and we knew that, they're the kind of company that puts a list on the front door and we're on it, great, we're in. But what we have found is, because I own a show, or we own a show, of course, my husband is absolutely integral in that, they think we're getting some sort of special treatment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, we were first in line at a sale, this is a couple years ago, and we got in and we made a pile. So once the people from number 10 and back got in, we had a pretty good pile sitting there. Some people actually accused the estate sale company of working with us and making that pile for us before we ever got in the door. I'm like, listen, come on, really? But this is the kind of stuff they conjure up in their heads, that it's like, well, because she owns a show, she gets special treatment. It's like, listen, if I was getting special treatment, you wouldn't even see me here. I would have already been there.
You'd be
See,
there.
I would have been there last week,
There it
and you
gone.
wouldn't even know it.
Right.
Right. So, if you have to pick up the phone and bitch about this stuff to other people, you've got a problem in your own business. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
You're not going to succeed if you're so busy thinking about what everyone else is doing. It's not everybody else's fault. You are either glossing over what's really going on in your business, or you're just an asshole. I mean, I don't know what else there is. There's only kind of two choices there.
Yeah. I think we have a consensus on that one.
Indeed. Indeed.
One thing, the final comment I would make on this is that social media has changed everything, and certainly in this business. And I've noticed, and this has probably been going on for a while, but only because I'm just kind of paying attention, is that it seems there's this heightened competition to take credit for discovering that holy grail, that whatever, that mint in the box, that never worn original tag, so that you're the one, because it's not just who finds it, it's kind of who becomes the agent to create the publicity for that item. Put it that way.
Interesting.
Well, think about it. So because you get it on, I mean, with people following one on Instagram or whatever, then you're the one who's brought it to the internet. It's almost like it didn't really exist beforehand, and of course it did. But just the whole social media is just a different, realm of reality. And so that dealer can then take the bow for, well, look, I get incredible things. Look, except that, yeah, they got it off of Craigslist. They got it from a Facebook marketplace. They bought it at your market. They bought it at my market. Uh, it's going. And people, and again, people don't read headlines, or people read headlines, don't pay attention to details. So for the most part, it kind of works for them. So I think that's why they can get so competitive. Again, they don't have to be jerks about it, but so that they can take credit for, look what I found.
And I think if that's what you think, then good for you.
Yeah, yeah,
If it works for your customers and people are all
yeah,
yay, and
yeah,
you like that, gives you that boost, great.
yeah. But don't step on everybody's face to
Right.
do that.
Just be
Uh,
cool about it.
yeah, yeah,
And I see a lot of passive aggressive behavior. I see a
definitely.
lot of I've seen a lot of people who thought that you think like these people are friends.
Yeah,
Not for
yeah,
long.
right, right.
And it's unfortunate.
It is, and it's. I mean, I've been doing this long enough where, um, there are people who are friends for 10, 15, 20 years. Dealers who are friends who would buy from one another, and then there's a transaction that went bad. They thought they were going to get. I thought you were going to sell it. I always buy Blanco. How could you sell this? 20 Blanco
Not
vase,
offer
not think of
thank
me.
you.
And it's like, and then it's over. This whole relationship is over. And it just gets very petty. And I stepped into one of these once, between two people that I really, really respect, and they were not speaking anymore. And they happened to be in the store at the same time. And I knew they were talking. And so I thought, I'm going to pull my Henry Kissinger thing and say, come on, guys. You both are so great and blah, blah, blah. Didn't work. It didn't work at all. I'm playing Mother Teresa here. Like, I learned my lesson there. Let sleeping
Yeah,
dogs
right.
fight
Yeah.
each other.
You'll don't get involved and don't be the
Don't get
middleman.
involved. No, it was just sad. It was just sad because they're both amazing people. But they
Yeah.
chose to just step away from that relation. Can this resale marriage be saved? No, no, and I'm not the one to do it. So,
Oh,
uh,
and I mean, I'll be honest. I coming from starting on the internet and then moving into the real people world of this industry, I was so excited to find other people in real life that loved what I loved.
mhm,
Never did I consider the jealousy part.
mhm,
You know, it was like I was excited to share the things that I found. When they found something exciting, I was excited for them. But without fail, all of those types of relationships ended up in a jealousy situation where either that person decided to attempt to take something from me, uh, or just they were, you could tell they were just annoyed by me. Um, and all this time, I've never kept how I buy a secret. Okay. My methods are wide open. Anybody can do what I do. If you choose not to do that, that's not my problem. I mean, when I was in Mount Clemens, Michigan, I had a shop, and there was a paper called the Macomb Daily, which was our local county, paper. A lot of older people read it. I took out a full page ad. They did some special that was really cheap. So I'd take out this full page ad. Do you know how pissed people were?
mm, mm.
Do you know how many comments I got? Like, oh, you're the one who ran that ad. Like, you
Interesting.
can run an ad anytime you want.
Yeah,
Like, what am I doing that you cannot do?
yeah,
So at the end of the day, it's like there's no competition here because there's nothing I'm doing that you are not capable of doing.
right.
It's just your choice in how you are getting your merchandise. If the only choice you're making is to try to be the first in line and knock people down to get what you want, it's not going to work forever. And you're going to pay too much for your merchandise.
Yep.
And you're also doing things just to piss other people off. It's
And
not good for your
and
biz.
in the social media world, boy, are they going to talk. I mean, within
Yes.
people may be texting during the sale what you've just done.
Well,
Um,
I mean, here's
and
something else. I try not to go to these sales anymore. I'm sorry to interrupt you like that, rude. Um, but I don't want to see dealers that set up at my show behave like that.
oh no,
Like, I don't want to see that behavior firsthand because that will stick with me. If I saw one of my dealers run over and knock down an old lady to get what they wanted, that would be disturbing to me.
no,
And
because
I'd be
it's
wondering,
now your reputation.
well,
It's
right.
your
I'd be
the
wondering, what are
show's
you going
reputation.
to do at my show?
Yeah, yeah,
You know, that they weren't concerned about the person putting on the sales reputation. You know, they were just hell bent on it's greed. That's just pure greed. And if you're that greedy, maybe your business isn't going so well. And that's something you need to look inward. You know, again, the competition thing, it's all about looking in the mirror. If I wanted to be competitive, that's fine. I can look in the mirror and go, okay, you're competitive. Well, you don't want to be an asshole to anyone else because you own a show and everyone knows who you are. Um, and that's not the only reason. I don't want to be an asshole to anyone else because I don't want to be an asshole to anyone else. So I'm going to stay away from a situation that could potentially make me feel that way or react in a way that I don't want to do it. So I'm going to keep myself out of that situation. If you know that that's going to bother you, then get yourself out of that situation. If it's bothering you that you're in a row with 10 other people, 10 other booths that sell vintage clothing and you don't like it, fix it.
right.
Find out what's wrong. And the first step in doing that is always to look inward. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know,
So I think just
I
I think just
yeah,
to sum it up
yeah,
is that what's really bugging you is you.
that's right. Ding ding ding. Oh, I
Ding
love that.
ding
That's great.
ding ding ding. Well, I think we kind of worked our way towards that, and I'm sure dealers have many stories about similar situations. And again, it's something that you might not. It's difficult to consider and even harder to accept. But if at the end of the day, the week, the month of your vintage reselling life, you feel better about yourself and your business will do better. It'll be
I
reflected in the numbers
agree more.
and your sales. And if you feel better about yourself, everything's going to be better. And not being all uh,
We
you know,
feel so great about
so
ourselves.
yeah, particularly these days, it'd be nice if you felt good about yourself. So
I mean, you got what's true to your. You've got to do what's true to you.
right, right,
And when you don't do that, and you let something bother you, or you let greed or money seep in, you need to realize. I mean, that's human nature. We all get that feeling at times. It's
absolutely,
just
absolutely,
can you pull that back because it's not going to help you.
yeah, yeah,
So what do you do about it? You
yeah.
pull back and you come up with another way that is going to get you what you need without that problem.
I think one has to get to the point and acknowledge, because it's true, because we've been talking about this, is that there isn't competition. Maybe the only competition is you within yourself, which we talked about. Nobody's going to have the same item at the same price, the same condition, the same place. Not going to happen, right?
Right.
So that competition, and I mean, I've never been. The malls have come and gone, and I've never said, "Oh, they're competition," or a store. I'd welcome stores being near the. We need more. We need more vintage shows. We need more antique markets and malls. We need more. That's good. That's a healthy business. That not my business, your business, the whole freaking business. That's what's good. And I think we'll be steering closer to that as the years go on because this business, the moment is like booming.
Yes.
And it's
This
and
is
it's on and it's because of a positive attitude, not a negative. Everybody bugs me. I hate the world. No one succeeds with that, and least of all
not
you,
anymore.
if that's your opinion.
Right. And I mean, there's there's something in our business where we are the kinds of people that really don't want to work for other people. We want to be our own bosses. If you want to be your own boss, then you have to have some confidence in yourself. And like I said, step up and look around you. When I see somebody's booth that's great, I walk in there and go, what is this? Now, I don't walk in there and say, what is this because I'm jealous of it. I walk in and say, what is this? Because I want to know more.
Right,
I
right,
want to know more.
right,
Like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm very impressed.
right.
Um,
What are they doing that I can do?
exactly.
Right,
So
right.
there you go. There's a tip. I don't know if we've had tips on this. We haven't said anything yet. That's tip number one. What can you learn from
Yeah,
your competition? You
yeah,
know, I will never forget Brett, the first time he ever bought anything from me. Now, it was still very early in my doing shows life. So when he walked into my booth and bought and then handed me a check, I want to say it was like $1,500. Ah, oh my God. I had no idea that I could, sell that much to one person walking in. And remember, I've come from the internet
right.
and what would I sell on the internet? Things with names, things that were easier for people to find. So when I did, like, that was probably my third show ever. And instead of thinking to myself, oh, who's this cocky fellow? Because let's face it, he's a cocky fellow.
He's a successful cocky fellow.
Haha, Brett, who will never be watching this. But I'll have to let him know that we had a nice conversation about him today. But I wanted to know more. Who is this guy?
Right, right,
And how do I sell him more?
right. And most importantly, your attitude wasn't like, oh, well, I could have gotten more for these things. Right? Because there's dealers going,
Oh,
oh, people don't, well, we'll talk about more about that later, but there are dealers that don't want to sell to other dealers. Like I must have had this too cheap if this dealer can come along and buy from me. I know I can see on your face you totally don't agree with that, and nor do I.
no,
I'm
no, I
like,
agree with that.
yeah,
I mean,
this is yeah,
yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
yeah. I'm no, I mean that's what I mean. It's because you're in the food chain, and I always been that same. It's more like this is cool that let's be honest, more one of a kind of a high roller, high end dealer comes through, be it Brett or 100 other Bretts, that are out there shopping the country, right? And then bringing it to their clientele, which is boom, they're doing
Exactly.
trunk shows in Qatar or whatever. I mean, this is we have no idea where these people, they're selling privately to the wives of billionaires.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
yeah, because
Listen,
it's in
I
the food chain.
helped Brett
Yeah,
in
right.
Brimfield one year, and his customer base that came from New York City, this is his customer base. So
Yeah,
if you're jealous of that customer base, well, then build your own.
yeah. You're never going to
He
have
did
that.
it.
Well, I shouldn't say you're never. It's doubtful. You will have access to. It took him 30 years to get that customer base.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
So be happier in the food chain. And now you've got, if you sell to him or again, a zillion other, high-end dealers, not a zillion, maybe we'll stick to
Well, I
one.
mean, I'm
Uh,
okay with admitting that my customer base, like me personally, I am selling up the food chain
yeah,
because I don't have the customers that he has.
yeah,
And I am always happy to sell him stuff that
yeah,
I know he can do better on than me. And see, this all comes down to what I've paid for it. Once again, it's all in the buy. If I
right,
bought right,
right.
I can flip it.
Yeah, that might have to be tip number one, really.
Yeah, well, that's going to be tip number one in everything.
It really
If
is. And yeah,
The,
it's a
this
really good point.
business, the money is made in the buy,
Right, right,
not in the sell, in the
right,
buy.
right.
If you don't
And
buy
this,
it right,
right. And the mistake is made in the buy.
exactly,
So
exactly.
and
So if I make a mistake where I can't sell Brett a Chanel necklace because I have overpaid for it,
right,
that's my fault.
right. Sell to him for what you paid for and get your money and put it in something else.
You
Just
can do that as well, and that's a
go it.
great
Just keep
idea.
going. Which I've said before, you're not going to make money on everything. There's no shame in that at
Absolutely not.
all. At
Well,
all.
and then the funny part is like Brett is such a great example because I mean there was plenty of jealousy towards him and his collections and the things that he was presenting. And you know, he what I admire about it, it never bothered him. He was always very upfront and very honest about, you know, his buying and
Oh yeah,
what he
yeah,
sells and what he can get for it. And
yeah,
I appreciate that honesty.
yeah.
I have no problem with that. He's my competitor. Is he really? No, he's really not.
No, no.
So like I guess maybe then figure out what defines your competitor. What's your definition of a competitor?
When you really think about it, it's you need one another. You were
Right.
thrilled to make that sale, and let's give some shout out the other way. He needs inventory, and dealers
Right.
him need inventory. So you're not making this stuff. It's not
Well,
this isn't it's not this isn't a craft world. That's not what we're talking about.
no.
So I think it really goes back to that. And it's a business of relationships, and that's what it's about. And you can
Well,
say,
and I watched Brett, and I'm not going to like give away a bunch of his secrets or anything, but I watched Brett build these relationships.
"Mhm,
I've watched and you've known him longer than I have, but over the past, I think I've known him 12 or 13 years now, and I have nothing but admiration in terms of how he builds his customer base,
yeah,
and he builds relationships.
yeah,
I also would watch him come into a show and talk to every single vendor and build relationships with them. I know people, including myself, would save really good stuff for him because he was a great customer. He always wrote you a good check, never had to worry about cashing the check. These are the kinds of relationships you want to build and not be jealous of.
yeah, yeah.
And so many other people are like, well, I can do as well as that. Can you? Have you spent 30 years building a customer base so that you can draw millionaires and billionaires' wives
Yeah,
from New York City to Field and Brimfield?
yeah,
If you can't, you can. You just have to work at it.
yeah.
It's going to take time. And if you're too busy worried about what everyone else is doing, you're screwed.
I
You're
remember
just screwed.
years ago, I had a dealer, and really good dealer, and he had it, and he would actually, it was like a mantra with him, and he would say that he wanted to be like, it's just another deal. It's not Brett, but he wanted to be like another very successful dealer here in town. I want to be
Right.
like so and so, and he would say it all the time. And I said, you need to be you. You need to find out who you are as a dealer. And he doesn't, and
Amen.
he knew nothing about the history of the dealer, and I do. And this guy started at the bottom. I mean, the bottom.
Well, don't we all?
More of
Who teaches
a
us?
bottom than I was even, where I started. So I think for a while he was a garbage man. I'll put that out there. So I mean, this is a guy working a garbage truck. I don't nothing wrong with that, being low, but parking looks fine.
Well,
This
you can
is
find
like
a lot of stuff out there.
you
If
find
you
a lot
have
of stuff on the street, and now he's an expert now in you name it, So it just kind of got me, and just to kind of circle it around, this dealer that I'm talking about, that this young man isn't in the business anymore
oh,
because he never did. You can't. It's not feasible. It's not. You're setting a goal so high, it's not, it's just not possible. You
right.
need to find out what you're good at and who you are, and right. It's one thing to admire somebody, not but like, I want that guy's business. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that. Life doesn't work that way. Wish it did.
But if you're
Doesn't work.
smart, you can see someone else's success and go, okay, what part of that can I
Right.
learn for myself?
Right.
You know,
Right.
when I learned Brett's relationship building skills, that meant something to me. Like I paid attention to that. Um, and because of those relationship building skills, opportunities come.
Yep.
And whether it's to buy or sell, opportunities come if you build relationships and you don't think about other vendors as your competition.
Right. Right. So
If people get so worked up in the competition part that they forget about everything else and they zero in on that as being the biggest issue they have, and it destroys them.
yeah. So
And that's
dealers
a
who
problem.
dealers who are asking this question, what bugs you about you? That's
Thank
we turn the
what
question back. We turn the question
you
back on you. Look in
do.
the vintage mirror.
Yeah, look in the
Yeah.
vintage mirror
Mirror.
because, and the other thing is listen to other people. Instead of thinking they're competition, listen to them because you
Yeah.
don't know what you're going to learn.
Absolutely.
I talk to you, I talk to Brett. I have talked to people that have been in this business double the time I have because I want to know and I want to learn.
Yeah.
And I see success and I see successful people. And that's what you should be looking at, not this person is your competitor. Yeah, of course they are, I guess. But what are they doing that's so good that it's pissing you off?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Real quick, something on this. I had to learn this business on my own. So should everybody else. Is something that I've heard. And we're doing this show to kind of open the doors on some of this stuff that nobody talks about. And this is a huge one. People love to get in little groups and gossip about other dealers. It's like if you can't be friends with other dealers without cutting down other people, then maybe that's something that you should avoid too.
Mhm.
Because if you want your business to be a success, you're just adding things on that are going to wreck you. And I've tried it. Trust me, I've tried it. I came into this business online. I didn't know people in the real world, and when I started to get to know people, I also started to deal with jealousy and greed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was not there for me because I didn't start the way they did. And I think that just shuffled things up. My theory was I could sell anything I wanted. With the internet, I can sell whatever I want now. And I was just happy to have people that also enjoyed this. But what I've also learned is a lot of people are not happy unless you're miserable.
Yeah. There's there's a life lesson there. Absolutely. Amen. Can I get an amen? Amen. Yeah.
Amen.
Right. And
So that's the well, I mean, it's the reason I share everything I can. Because even if you're not, if I tell you every single secret I have, which I pretty much do, I'm really not been holding anything back through this. And if you're not paying attention and you're not gaining anything from that, and I'm not saying I'm amazing, but I'm saying in general, as a whole, when I listen to you because, and I'm gaining something, whether it's you're telling me about the store or telling me about the mall, it's something I can put towards my own business. You're successful, you're good at what you do. That means I look up to you and I think to myself, how can I be like that? Because your success shows that you're somebody that I can look up to. And I feel like all these young dealers today have the ability to be that person at some point and mentor people underneath them and talk to them about what they're doing and how they're doing it. The secretiveness of our business does not help anybody, really.
no, no.
And so I really encourage my dealers to speak amongst each other, help each other. When customers come in, I encourage them to talk to the vendors because they can teach you things about what you collect.
Mhm.
And I encourage I'll tell new dealers, set up near somebody who's really busy and doing really well, and pay attention to what they do.
Yeah.
And know that if you have a booth, or you have a booth, like if you have a booth at Broadway, if you have a booth at Vintage Garage, pay attention to those who are selling a lot.
Yeah.
Pay
Yeah.
attention and stop worrying about them being your competition, and figure out, okay, how do I sell as much as they do? That's your goal. Your goal isn't to continuously bitch about other people's sales.
I think there's a maybe it's just human nature, and again, I kind of go back to social media, because it just seems like this is so much about success is based on
Stuff.
followers and popularity, and it's the uh, uh, as I've said, you've known me for years, and I always put this out there. I've fallen on my face so many times, and you know what? If you're not failing every once in a while, you're really not learning anything. And I've learned way more from my failures than my successes, and I relish the few that I do have in that. But there's no shame in that. There's no shame in trying something. Say, you know what, I want to start dealing in blah blah blah. And you try and it doesn't really work. Okay, you go on to the next thing. Or you're in a market, it didn't work. You had a booth at Broadway, it didn't work. There's no shame in that. No shame in any of these things. You do need to look within and say, well, why didn't it work? And not looking to blame whoever owns the market or the customers or other dealers or no. And really in anything in life, it's like and you could say it failed because of you, but what you will learn will be because of you.
Right.
And these things sound simple and stupid, and maybe they are, but it's been a mantra for me. And because in the long run, it's I always say, is the race to the swift or to the swiftiest? You, the longevity of things. If in the end you can go like, okay, and I can say I've had a great run. Cannot believe what we've been able to do. My partner Jeff Nelson and I. Like,
you guys are good.
And to get through, particularly these last couple of years, everything's been nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So you get through the pandemic like a king.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I've got things to learn from this.
That was, it was, yeah. I mean, this is kind of winding down into my going, okay, it'd be great to kind of step back from this. And no, then this happens. No. And I have a responsibility to lots of other people, and not just the dealers. Every dealer has a partner, and they have kids and they have families. I mean, this extends out, and yourself too. When you've got a market, I don't know if people realize that when they're buying a cocktail shaker or a maxi dress, there's like hundreds of people that are really behind all this and brought this together so you can buy this. It's just it's always just the big picture of things. And I'm not going kumbaya about it, but to think about that.
Maybe we should a little bit.
Well,
what would be wrong with a little kumbaya in our industry?
The one of the nicest things that has been happening is I have people come in the store now, and they're not buying anything. It's okay, and they just go, "Oh my gosh, you're still here! I'm so happy you're still here." Or this is my happy place. I hear that word a lot. This is my happy place. Apparently, it's not McDonald's. Who knew? And because I feel safe here. This is my
birthday parties like McDonald's, but at Ham. Would that be fun?
Got enough kids.
That was the good old days.
Wait till they're vaccinated. Anyway, don't want to get off.
Okay,
topic.
yeah. Let's see. So let me run through just let's circle back.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of competition in the vintage industry, no doubt about it. And the only competition you really need to worry about is buying. Okay, your business is made in the buy. So if you feel like buying is too competitive and you're not finding anything, then start looking at other options. How can you find merchandise without ever seeing another competitor? If you can figure that out, you're going to be golden. And then you don't have to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about it. And all I can say is be the best person you can be.
Yeah. Be
You
a decent
know, if
human
you're
being.
good at this and you're good and you're doing well, it's because you're doing something right.
Mhm.
Um, and hopefully it isn't knocking people over. Um, because that's not going to work for anybody long term. You're going to get a reputation, you know, you're going to get a lot of things. They're going to make it a lot harder for you to buy right. And that is your that pretty much is everything. And so when you're worried about your competition, what you really should be worried about is how did I buy all this stuff? And obviously maybe I paid too much for it and that's why I'm not selling it because my prices are too high. You know, just run through it. But stop blaming, you know, whoever across the aisle from you.
Right.
They don't matter in your business, like in the scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Ta-da!
Yeah.
You
Pretty
know,
really.
people ask me all the time, how do dealers do? And I say, well, it depends on the dealer. If they're priced right and they've brought the right kind of merchandise, they do really well. If they don't do well, then we have to dig in a little bit. What did you bring? How did you price it? Um, you know, how was your booth set up? There's so many things. So, but again, it's all about looking inward and not out at other people and blaming, you know, because nobody owes you anything in this business. Nobody. We are all independent businesses, but you're going to be way more successful if you cut the shit and not worry about everybody else and focus on yourself.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And my final word would be that, you know, all these dealers bug you. The only real bugs are in your own head and in your own home.
Correct.
Take care of that first. Things will be better.
And if you want to talk about, you want to hear about stuff, or you want to hear about other issues in our industry, you know, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I think this is our, I think we're kind of coming up on maybe 8 videos now,
Mhm.
all addressing different things, and we're going to keep doing that
Yeah.
until we're done, which I'm not sure we're ever going to be done, are we?
Well,
There's
that's
going to be
right.
a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you all on the next one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Subscribe.
Woohoo! Oh, yes, please subscribe.
Bye, guys.